going to do Greek food, which I'm not sure about the area if you've had Greek Orthodox churches, but around Pittsburgh, they're everywhere. And I lived in Boston, everywhere, Philly, everywhere. And it was my favorite part of summertime were all those incredible food festivals with stuffed grape leaves and the souvlaki and the kebabs and the rice pilaf and of course the baklava and all those wonderful desserts. And because we're not going to be having Greek food festivals this summer, I figured I'd teach you guys how to make some pretty simple dishes that are nice. They have light flavors. They're great for summertime because they're not too heavy. And I love that essence of the Greek flavor system. In fact, when Jesus first came into my life, the first churches in which I attended were actually Greek Orthodox. And I just fell in love with the liturgy and the history and the ancient faith. And it just seems like the food is a part of that. And of course, the New Testament is written in Greek. And so it just seems like this great expression of food and family and faith. So, well, the first thing we're going to do today is we're going to make a tzatziki sauce. And so what I've done ahead of time is already minced a cucumber. So first you peel it, and then you just run a spoon down the middle, take out all the seeds and any of the wet parts there. And then you just give it a real fine mince, so maybe lengthwise into strips, and then break it down into tiny, tiny little pieces. But as wonderful as cucumber is, it's also very wet. It's a very moist fruit. And so what we need to do is take a clean cloth and we're going to squeeze all of this cucumber out, all the liquid out first, because you don't want a runny tzatziki sauce. You want it to be nice and thick. So we're going to take all of those cucumber pieces, we place it in the center of the cloth, and then you're going to pick up the corners of the cloth to where they meet in the center. And we're just going to make a little pouch. We're just going to make a little pouch, and then we're just going to use pressure to twist it, and just keep that pressure on it. And what that's going to do is get all of that moisture out of our cucumber bits. So all that we're left with is the flavorful pulp without the liquid. You can see as I'm squeezing this over the sink how much liquid and moisture is just dripping out of it. And that's what we want. Get all of that liquid out of there. There we go. We'll open up our pouch, and there we have essence of cucumber, which is just such a great fruit for the summertime. It's such a great flavor. Here in America, we have summer salad, right, with mayonnaise and vinegar and tomatoes and cucumbers and onion. There's just something about that flavor. It reminds me of summertime. So we have our cucumber in there. Let me get a spoon. And next we're going to add 2 cups of yogurt, plain Greek yogurt. This is oikos, which literally means, this is really cute, it means house in Greek. It's sort of like home. So this is the particular brand I'm using. It's a 0% plain yogurt, no vanilla, nothing, just the yogurt. So we're going to add that. Each of these is already pre-measured as a cup, thankfully. So 2 cups plain yogurt, preferably Greek. And to that, I'm going Add the juice of 2 to 3 lemons. I'm a little bit guesstimating here. I don't want to be too liquidy. I just want the citrus in there. I don't have to go crazy with it. To that, we're also going to add 1/8 of a cup of fresh dill. Dill is very powerful. Don't feel like you need to go crazy with it. It'll really overpower all the other herbs and seasonings. And all I'm doing is just kind of tearing this up a little bit. Give that a stir. And then I'm going to add a tablespoon of fresh mint leaves that I've minced. Pinch of pepper. Pinch of salt. The lemon in there is going to add the acidity, so we don't have to go too crazy with the salt. And then I always add a little bit of garlic powder. I would say, just literally enough just to add a little bit of depth and richness to it. And that is it. So that is your tzatziki sauce. I'll explain why we're making this first. Is that we want this to marinate. We want all of those flavors and seasonings to get mixed up in there. And then I'm also going to add a pinch of oregano. And I'm just using dried oregano, which I actually prefer to fresh in dishes like this. We're just going to add a pinch of fresh oregano. There we go. I like to usually make my tzatziki a day before I'm going to serve it so that the cucumber and everything has had time to break down. While I'm going to be using this for a specific dish, this goes great with blackened chicken. So if you got the grill on, just throw some blackening seasoning on some chicken and grill that, or even saute it in the pan. And then tzatziki is great on top of it. It's obviously great for any of the Greek meats or kebabs. So we're going to put this in the refrigerator for now, because yogurt needs to keep refrigerated. And while that's in there, we're going to make kofta, which is it is a Greek meat that can be prepared a number of different ways. And it's one of my favorites. I just think it has so much flavor. Someone once compared it to a Greek meatloaf, which is probably fair. So in this bowl, I have finely minced 3 garlic cloves and 1/2 of a red onion. I'm doing an extremely fine mince. Right. So into that, I'm going to add a teaspoon of fresh grated ginger. And just like we did with the cucumber, I've already gone ahead and drafted as much of that liquid out of there as possible. If you've never worked with fresh ginger, first you're going to peel it. I think it's best to chop it. Chop all the leaves and stems off. Grate it until you have a solid piece. About 2 inches is enough. And on your box grater, on the fine setting, you're just going to have to keep working it and working it and working it. And what it's going to do is release a lot of that oil and water. We actually don't want that. We actually want the fresh ginger itself. So we've added that. And then we're going to add 3/4 cup of fresh parsley. Now this is 3 bunches of parsley, and so I pulled all of the leaf off and have make sure all the stems are removed. But when you're working with fresh parsley like this, and you're going to put it into a dish, whether it's meatloaf or anything else. If you've ever noticed, there's a lot of liquid, just like the cucumber. So again, we have a separate clean cloth. We're going to put our parsley in there, 3/4 cup. And then what we're going to do again is just squeeze. Okay? We're going to squeeze as much of that liquid out of there as we possibly can. You probably can't see from the web camera, but there is a ton of liquid just being released from this. And while we want the fresh parsley, we don't want all of that moisture in our dish. There are companies that make pre-dehydrated parsley. I'm sorry, but it just tastes like grass clippings to me. It's just, there's something pungent about that aroma. So we're going to add our fresh parsley. And again, as always, I will have the recipes loaded onto the YouTube channel, so you'll be able to copy those at home. I apologize here, hold on. All right, there we go. We're going to add 2 teaspoons of salt. Now I'm going to be measuring these because we're going to be using some pretty powerful spices. And I want to be really careful and exact because they can overpower the dish if you're not careful. There's our salt. We're going to use literally a pinch of crushed red pepper. So literally shake it a couple of times. And that's it. It's barely coming out actually, which is fine. This is just going to give us a tiny bit of heat. That's all we want. We don't want it to be a spicy dish, just a little bit of heat. We're going to add a teaspoon of pepper. We're going to add a 1/4 cup of mint leaf. And then this is where it gets a little complicated. We're going to do 2 tablespoons of cumin. If I say tablespoons, I apologize, teaspoons. 1 tablespoon of oregano. Two tablespoons of coriander. If you've worked with these spices before, you know how strong they are, which is why I'm using a measuring spoon, which I usually don't do. 1 teaspoon ground cinnamon. Gosh, it smells so good in there. All of those herbs and flavors and seasonings. And then finally, well, not finally, but we're going to add cloves, 1 teaspoon. So once I have all of my components in that dish, in this mixture, to that we're going to add a pound of ground beef. This is particularly pretty lean, and a pound of ground lamb, which I was lucky enough to be able to get a hold of. All we're going to do is mix this best we possibly can all together. All of those flavors and herbs and seasonings just coming together, coming alive. It just smells absolutely heavenly. And again, already in that bowl, I had a half of a red onion minced and 3 cloves of garlic finely minced. What's interesting is whenever you make these kinds of foods, people often hear about it and they go, oh, I had a Lebanese friend that used to make that, or, oh, I used to go to the Syrian Christian church and they used to make this all the time, or, I used to see it at the Greek food fair. The answer is yes to all of those, and usually they're called the same thing. There's usually a few changes, but the reason being that Greece and Turkey and Syria and Lebanon throughout history had been conquered by the same empires. So first the Greeks came riding through from Alexander of Macedonia, and then you had the Seleucids and the Hasmoneans, the Hittites for a while, you had the Turks, and then of course the Ottoman Empire. So these peoples and cultures were constantly being influenced by each other's flavors and foods. And because these are people who were traders and merchants, I mean, that's why they had cinnamon and coriander, garlic, and, all these wonderful flavors that just goes together so darn well. So what we're going to do is I already have a pan nice and warm, and I'll explain to you what's going on here. This particular meat mixture can be prepared a bunch of different ways that you may find. One is they'll make a meatball out of it and saute it. What I'm going to do is make sort of an oblong, almost like a hamburger. It's a little more oblong. I'll show you why later. The other thing you can do with this is you take your barbecue skewers. I highly recommend steel or metal. And on those skewers, you're just literally going to pat your meat mixture together onto the skewer and then put that on the grill. It tastes wonderful over charcoal, but it can go up pretty quickly. It cooks very quickly. So you want to be aware of that. So what I'm going to do with our meat mixture here is I'm just going to make a bit of an oblong, kind of like a hamburger patty, okay? Again, I'll show you why a little bit later. Where you get that on the heat.
Did you say there was oil in the pan?
No, ma'am, there's no oil because, it's meat, so I'm not going to worry about sort of frying it. We're just going to slowly cook that off for a while. The rest of this meat mixture, I'm going to refrigerate because I'm not ready to make the rest now. I just wanted to make one to show you guys what's going in there. Now, because I handled raw beef and raw lamb, it's time to disinfect. So, wash the hands. The nice thing about modern food is that, the foodborne illness that comes through usually gets picked up. The way the FDA and other groups work, the ag departments, is that meat is checked periodically along the way. So there's multiple chances for it to pop a red flag. So if there was mad cow disease, if there was some sort of hoof to mouth disease, it would get picked up along the way before it got to the grocery store. And even if the grocery store got it, at that point they would check. And it would get flagged, hopefully. We keep our fingers crossed. So hot water and soap. We're just going to get the crumbs off of here. We're going to disinfect our cleaning surface or wood top here. And that's the last thing we have to worry about with foodborne illness today. So that's it. Okay. The next dish we're going to work on is called tabbouleh. And it is it's a great summery type of salad. Not unlike the corn salsa I showed you guys last week. At the end, I'm going to turn the other camera on so you guys can see the stove. You'll be able to see what this stuff looks like a little bit closer. So tabbouleh is typically made with bulgur wheat. They actually take the wheat almost curd. It's like a tiny cylindrical pasta. Think about tapioca. It has that kind of consistency. What I like to make mine with is actually couscous. And it's nice because you can go to the Giant Eagle or Walmart or anywhere today and find plain couscous. It's so easy to prepare. You're going to get water boiling. In this case, I'm using the whole thing, the whole box. But you're going to boil your water, add butter. I like that chicken stock to mine, just to add some richness to it. And once it's at a boil, you're going to add the box of couscous and take it off the heat and cover it. And that's it. About 2.5 minutes afterwards, I'll stir it and then put the cover back on. But it's nice because it's kind of like fire and forget, you know. It doesn't require a ton of attention. So this is a box of couscous, which again has a sort of almost a tapioca sort of consistency. And it's plain, it doesn't have anything in it right now. We're going to change that. So what really gives tabbouleh its flavor is parsley. And what I have here is 1.5 cups of parsley. Now, unlike before where I drained the moisture, I don't want to do that. I want the moisture into this dish. So I have my 1.5 cups of parsley. To it, I'm going to add 3 diced Roma tomatoes. I'm also going to add 2 tablespoons of mint, finely chopped. I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of salt, a tablespoon of black pepper, and a cup of lime juice. Don't be ashamed or afraid of the lime juice. Let it get all up in there. Now what I did is after my couscous was done, after it was finished cooking, and it was still warm, I added 3 finely minced cloves of garlic. The reason I did that is when it's warm, the couscous, and you slowly start to stir it, that garlic just saturates the whole thing. The flavor of the garlic really pops. It really comes out. And finally, I'm going to add what is 1/4 of a red onion finely minced. And then using my hand, we're just literally going to mix all of that together. It's not cooking until you get messy. Got a little parsley left. I'll add that. It's almost like a couscous and parsley salad. I'll let you take a look at this. You may see this sometimes in the grocery stores, markets, particularly places that have a Middle East or Greek culture. You may see this from time to time. But it turns that couscous into a nice green sort of color and texture. And that's it. It is so easy. It's a simple, simple salad. We're going to stick that in the fridge as well. Again, there's no foodborne illness concern. These are all vegetables, plants. And then finally, one of the things I love about the Middle Eastern food is naan bread, which, if you've ever had before, is a lot like a pita. It's like a thick pita, essentially. So what I did this morning, and again, I'll put the recipes up for you later, is I made my dough ahead of time. So a naan bread dough is really interesting. It's not an unleavened bread, but it's not fully a leavened bread. So I start out with 1 cup of warm water, which should be at about 102 to 105 degrees. To that, you're going to add 2 teaspoons of active yeast. Give it 3 to 5 minutes. You'll know when it's ready. You'll smell it. You can smell the yeast culture starting to come together. In a separate bowl, you'll add a cup and a half to 2 cups of flour, 2 teaspoons of salt, a teaspoon of sugar, and you're going to stir that around and then make a little well. Going back to your liquid mixture, add 1/3 of a cup of yogurt, and then you're going to add 1 egg, and you're going to whip all that together, and then add that to the flour. Mold that together, get it all going until it's a wet, pasty consistency. And once that's ready, you're going to add another half cup of flour, and then another 1/4 cup. And you're going to continue to knead it for about 3 to 5 minutes. In the end, what you want is a very tight dough ball, and it should be just a little bit wet. I'm going to let that rise just a little bit for about 1.5 hours to 2 hours. At which point I break that down into 4 or 5 dough balls, and then start to flatten them out a little bit, and then put them in the fridge. At that point, you're pretty much ready to go, and that's the state that these guys are in. So behind me here, I have a griddle on, okay? And I'm letting that get nice and warm. This is again called naan bread, and one of the things I love about it is it's so ancient. Like there's just something, when you see it come alive after it's griddled, you'll see what I'm talking about. You feel like you're truly eating, you know, something that Jesus ate. It's a very delicate dough. You don't have to go too crazy with it. All I'm doing here is just patting out the air bubbles just a little bit. And that's about the size you want. Again, all I'm trying to do is pat out the air bubbles. Now what I'm going to do is take a little olive oil and just a pastry brush. And I'm just going to put a tiny bit of oil onto this griddle. I don't want it soaking wet. I don't want it to go crazy. Just a tiny little bit of oil. Then Add my naan to that. We're going to bake that off for a few seconds. One fair warning is if you put this out at room temperature too long, it'll start to stick. I'll have to remake that one. I'll have to remake both of these. As these are cooking on the griddle, you'll start to hear them kind of pop and sizzle a bit. What you'll want is a browning on the outside. It'll start to look like a pita, essentially. These are also really popular in Indian food, these simple breads. In pastry brush, just a little bit of olive oil. For both flavor and texture. Clean this workstation a little bit. Beautiful. Now earlier I had simply roasted some baby bell peppers. If you're ever interested, you can just roast them over the top of the fire on your range. So the best way to do this. Here. Okay. Now that I have my naan bread finished, You can see the size of it. That's what your naan bread looks like. See how it looks like a pita? I've got my little peppers there. And now my beef patty, the kofta, goes right in the center. With a little tzatziki. I like a little crumpled feta. A couple of tomato slices. Some lettuce. And tabbouleh. And just a super easy, pretty little plate. Perfect for summertime and all of those great, rich Greek flavors. So, any questions, any thoughts, any curiosities?